Welcome to the Federal Youth Network Virtual Learning Series. Please note that this session will be offered in English for the first 30 minutes. The French session will immediately follow at 2 p.m. Veuillez noter que cette session sera offerte en anglais pour les premières 30 minutes et que la présentation en français suivra à 14 heures, heure de l'Est. I would like to begin by acknowledging that I'm here on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people, and I encourage all of you to acknowledge the land you are on as well. This session is intended to provide an overview of your collective agreement. We understand that you may have questions regarding the potential strike. However, we will not be addressing that during this session. For information and resources regarding strike information, please visit the GC101 resource page. Without further ado, I will pass the mic to Mati Mulumba, who will be our moderator for today. Mati, the floor is yours.
Thank you so very much, Olivier. My name is Mati Mulumba, and I will be the moderator for today's session. I am joining you from Treaty 6 territory that I would like to acknowledge because this is the land where I work, play, and this is my place of living. And I respectfully recognize all the Indigenous culture, the Métis culture, and the Inuit and First Peoples of Canada. So before we start, we have a couple questions for you. So if you can be able to answer the poll. The first question would be, this is not mandatory, first of all, so feel free to answer and at the best of your ability. Are you part of a collective agreement? And which union are you part of? Have you ever accessed services from your union? So those are the couple questions that we had for the poll. So thank you for participating. Do we have the results here, Olivier? Yes, so most of you answered 82%. Yes, you're part of a collective agreement. And then also a bigger majority mentioned the union that they're part of. And then the last one, if you've ever accessed services for your union, 60% of you answered no. So thank you all for participating. So without any delay, I'm going to pass it on to today's panelists that we have here. And I will allow them to introduce themselves and then jump into the presentation. So we have Ryan Wengler and Teresa Morgan. So I'll let Ryan and Teresa introduce themselves.
Thank you. So my name is Teresa Morgan, and I am the Regional Field Coordinator for the Joint Learning Program for the Ontario and Nunavut region, and I represent the employer. And my colleague Ryan goes by the same title, and he represents the union. So I am privileged to live and work on the ceded territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Anishinaabe, the Attawanedock, Haudenosaunee, and Métis were the original peoples of this land. The land spanning from Lake Ontario to Niagara Escarpment was home to these people. The land where I am is commonly known by some as the city of Burlington, Ontario. Brian, I'm not sure if you wanted to just recognize where you're from.
Yeah, I'm in the Niagara region on treaty territory as well.
Perfect. Thank you. So before we discuss the collective agreement, we'd like to share a brief overview of the Joint Learning Program and how we can help you learn more about your rights and responsibilities. The Joint Learning Program is a partnership between the Public Service Alliance of Canada and the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat. The JLP is mandated to improve workplace relationships and deepen understanding of the respective roles and responsibilities of the union and the employer in the workplace. It is available to all union members of the core public administration and their management counterparts. So the program does have guiding principles So we have a partnership model. So this, the program is co-governed, co-managed, and the learning material is co-developed. Requests to organize learning events, including the facilitation and participation, must include both parties. We also use an experiential learning approach where participants apply knowledge through hands-on experience by participating in learning exercises that foster reflection, dialogue, problem solving, and application of ideas and skills to workplace situations. Discussion on relevant and sensitive topics in an egalitarian and safe learning environment that fosters respect amongst each other. We are also a request-based learning. So organizations can request their preferred dates and times and topics. Requests are submitted jointly, and there is access to a small budget. The number of participants for in-person workshops is 15 to 18 and 8 to 15 for our virtual discussion sessions. They are offered in either English or French. Now, we also have a peer-to-peer facilitation. So the peer facilitation model is at the very heart of our program. It increases credibility and ownership. Persons interested in becoming a JLP facilitator can submit an application with the support of their manager and union representative for union facilitators. Those who are successful will participate in a one-week orientation session where they will learn new transferable skills.
So the JLP offers 7 different in-person workshops and 6 virtual discussion sessions. Our program focuses on learning events such as preventing harassment and violence in the workplace, duty to accommodate, respecting differences, anti-discrimination, anti-racism, understanding the collective agreement, which we will touch on today, labor management consultation, mental health in the workplace, and employment equity.
Great, thanks, Ryan. So as you'll see on the slide, we have a couple of questions. So the first one, why do you think there are different unions and not just one for all of us? So we're asking you to please put your answers in the chat. And we'll give you a few seconds here to just put your answers in the chat. Okay, that's great. So there are different occupational groups and professions within the federal public service, and therefore differing working conditions and needs. So there are different union representation and approaches, which necessitates various bargaining agreements. So that's sort of why we have different unions. Okay, on to the second question. What types of things do you think there are in a collective agreement? Once again, I am going to invite you to put your answers in the chat. So what types of things do you think there are in a collective agreement? Oh, this one's blowing up. That's awesome. So there are different clauses within the collective agreement. Those which focus on working conditions and those which focus on working relationships. So working conditions include pay and benefits, rates of pay, leave provisions, vacation time, to name a few. The working relationship clauses include the relationship between the parties of the collective agreement, such as management rights, union recognition, grievance procedures, union management consultation, and others. Thanks so much for that.
Okay, So as indicated, the joint learning program has 2 learning events related to understanding the collective agreement. The first one is a virtual discussion session. It is up to 4 hours in length. And then we have an in-person workshop of either 1 or 1.5 days. And the purpose of both is to promote ongoing self-directed learning on understanding, interpreting, and applying the collective agreement. They enhance participants' problem-solving capacity on issues covered by the collective agreement, and they promote the consistent application of collective agreements across the federal public service. So today we're going to look at 4 specific questions in relation to collective agreements. So I'll ask the question first of Teresa. Teresa, what is a collective agreement? What is it for?
Good question. Brian, it's a legally binding agreement entered into willingly, usually, by 2 parties as the result of negotiation. It is commonly referred to as the contract or the agreement. Article 1 of most collective agreements states the purpose and scope. It ensures labor peace. There is no right to strike and lockout during the term of the agreement. It is an instrument of social justice. It ensures equity and equal treatment for all. And it is a management and planning tool. It outlines procedures on matters such as vacation, promotions, and disciplinary measures, etc. So I have a question for you, Ryan.
Okay.
Who are the parties to the collective agreement, and who is covered by the collective agreement?
So the parties are identified on the cover page of the actual agreement. So for example, agreement between the Public Service Alliance of Canada and the Treasury Board of Canada, or agreement between the Professional Institute of the Public Service of Canada and the Treasury Board, etc. And the agreements are signed by representatives of the parties on the union and on the employer side. So the agreement applies to the employer, the union, and employees specified in the purpose and scope article and or the recognition article in the collective agreement itself. The employees are normally identified by their bargaining group on the cover page as well. And just to note, the essence of a collective agreement is really its collective application. The terms and conditions of employment that are listed are contracted on behalf of the collective. This means that individual employees covered by the collective agreement cannot make individual agreements with the employer outside of these terms and conditions. Any subsequent individual agreement has no legal standing. It is null and void, unenforceable. It is illegal.
Okay, thanks for that.
No problem. So I have another question for you, Teresa.
Okay, I'm ready.
So what is the relationship between the collective agreement and a policy of the employer? Which takes precedence when there is a perceived conflict between the two?
A really good question. So an employer retains all rights not modified by the collective agreement or legislation. So these are called residual management rights. Management has the right to grant additional entitlements to employees, and these are usually described in employer policies. Employer policies may be written to explain collective agreement rights. In these cases, a policy of the employer must not contravene the collective agreement. So where there is a conflict between an employer policy and a collective agreement, the collective agreement takes precedence.
Thank you.
So I have one last question to ask, Ryan.
Okay.
So what is a grievance? And what is the relationship between a grievance and applying the collective agreement?
So a grievance really is a formal complaint. The circumstances under which a grievance may be presented and processed are outlined in the grievance procedure article in the collective agreement itself. A grievance may be used as a mechanism to claim an entitlement under the collective agreement. And to note that previously adjudicated grievances create case law, and adjudicators are guided by decisions of other adjudicators or are bound by decisions of the courts.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, thanks, Ryan. You know, that's the end of those questions that we were going to ask and answer. So we can see that there were some really good questions and comments in the chat. Again, thank you very much for your participation. Given the time restraints, we don't have time to address them today. However, there will be resources available on the Federal Youth Network wiki page, on the internal departmental website, and on the union websites. So for more information about the Joint Learning Program, we ask you to please visit our website at www.jlp-pam.ca or use the QR code that's on your slide right now. We'll give you a few seconds there to take a quick picture of the QR code.
Yeah, and we just really encourage those of you that are interested to become JLP facilitators. There's information on our website, again, through the QR code. But also you can submit online requests for our various learning events, including the Understanding a Collective Agreement discussion session or workshop in your very own department or office. So we encourage you to visit that for more information. And we thank you for joining us today. Pass it back to Matthew.
Thank you very much to both of you. Thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Teresa. Thank you to all the participants. Great learning session and lots of nuggets that you shared that are going to be useful. Appreciate your time. I'll pass it on to Olivier.
Thank you, Metsi. Just as a very general question, if anybody has more questions about their collective agreement, though, where would you suggest they go to find it online? If we can drop the resource in the chat for everyone, that'd be great. But also if you want to answer, that'd be even better.
Yeah, so I think if you have specific questions, I mean, certainly the first thing we would obviously suggest is to request an actual, virtual discussion session or workshop in your workplace, because really you'll have that time with your team, with your managers, with your union representatives to answer any of those questions. And sometimes, you have specific issues within your own department or your own office that could be addressed in that learning event. But I think we're also open to general questions, and we will be happy to answer those questions and provide it to the Federal Youth Network, and then they can in turn supply that information to those participants today. But keep in mind, we don't want to give too much away, because we definitely want to entice you to approach your union, approach your manager and say, hey, you know, can we have this in our workplace? I think this would be valuable. And we know you'll be pleased. It's a high demand within departments, certainly since the pandemic. A lot of hiring of new staff, young people including, and so there will be a benefit for you to understand exactly what that collective agreement will provide for you, right? Which your entitlements are. Ryan, anything else?
Yeah, I'll just add, if you visit the Treasury Board of Canada website, there's an alphabetical listing of all the collective agreements. So you can search for your particular one if you're unsure. You can actually read it for yourself. And of course, on the union that you belong to, on their website, they also have more information about the collective agreements and collective bargaining as well.
Awesome. That's great. And as you mentioned earlier, so if you have any questions, like speaking to the audience, you can put them in the Q&A. We'll do our best as a federal network, and we'll connect with Teresa, with Ryan, to get the answers to the general questions that you might have. I think just in general, I've been seeing some questions in the Q&A. I think it's a great also lesson in two things. First, to make sure that when you get your answers from a colleague, make sure they're under the same collective agreement as you are as well. And verify your sources, because there is a lot of hearsay that can happen with these type of things. So it's good to either ask an expert if you're not sure, or look directly into your collective agreement yourself. Perfect. Do you have any final word of advice that you want to add before we close the English portion of the session?
Well, I would just say that, beyond, I mean, we are here to talk about understanding the collective agreement, but when you're in your workplace, you'll see that there are other issues that come up. And so, as Ryan mentioned during our presentation, we have other topics that are applicable, really, to help you be a better employee, sorry, I beg your pardon here, employee and union representative if you are. And yeah, we look forward to perhaps getting some requests as a result of today's presentation.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I would just add, get to know your collective agreement. It's not about memorizing the facts in it, but it's about learning what's in it, what the various sections are. So when something comes up, you can look it up, and you don't have to go by memory or by what a colleague says, but you can look at what's actually the wording in the collective agreement. And one of the things we cover in understanding the collective agreement is the 4-step approach to interpretation. And then you can apply that to anything you're looking at in your collective agreement. So again, encourage you to go to the JLP website to sign up for our, or to make requests for our Understanding the Collective Agreement discussion session and workshop. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you, Teresa, and thank you, Maxie.